What should I do for my first review? I could review Kingdom Come Deliverance, but I haven't finished it yet. Or Dark Souls Remastered. No, I haven't finished that either. What should I review then? Oh! Would you look at that? It was like it was here all along. It's 4. Resident Evil. Resident Evil 4 is the 4th game in the popular survival horror series Resident Evil and is brought to us by Capcom, and this was my first time actually really getting to play it. I've played some Resident Evil games in the past, like the remake, as well as Resident Evil 7, but I've never really been that into the series or played many of the games. So this was my chance to review and look at a classic. And the story this time follows Leon Kennedy, who is tasked with finding the president's daughter in a rural town in Spain that has been infected by some sort of virus that makes everybody sort of zombie-like, and it's all because of this weird cult that's in the area who has plans of world domination. Now, that plot summary right there is very goofy and really dumb, honestly, but the story is very fun in some parts, especially in the first half. Now, why exactly am I reviewing a game that came out on the GameCube all those years ago? Well, I mean, it's on PS4 for a reason, isn't it? So, technically it's a new game. Now, I have played Resident Evil 4 once before, and that was when I was really young and I rented it from the game store, and I remember I couldn't get past the opening level, or actually even the opening area of the game. I was just really bad at the game, and I was honestly pretty bad at the game at the start of this, but I quickly learned how to adapt to controls and what the game wanted me to do, and I ended up really having a blast with this game. This is often considered one of the greatest video games ever made, and I completely understand. However, it's not one of the greatest video games that I've ever played. And I'll get into my reasons why in a bit. First off, I want to praise this game for the horror elements, because that's really what a Resident Evil game is. It's supposed to be survival horror, and you really feel that throughout the game, especially in the first half when you're through this village level, just fighting villagers, and it can be really scary, and it's really great if you're in the dark at nighttime. It's a fantastic time to play, and it's the only way I recommend how to play the game. I also really like the mechanics of the game. I did have a problem earlier on, as I said, but I found it really easy to adapt to. It was a very fun experience playing the game, micromanaging all your stuff. You have this system where you basically can only carry a few items at a time, and you constantly have to upgrade it to get more stuff. And it's very like a risk versus reward kind of thing, where you basically have to plan out what you want to have, and it's just really, really cool and a very fun mechanic that I like better than the systems implemented in RE Remake. The combat is very fun too. It's very much a mix of old PS1 gameplay with the continuation of PlayStation 2 gameplay, which I kind of like. It's a nice little mix, even though there are some problems with it in the beginning. I also really like the grim atmosphere, and a lot of the enemy designs, especially these boss fights, are just so creative and looks so nice, especially in HD, which this game is in HD. It's fantastic to look at, and it's great that such an old game has aged incredibly well. I also like such things as this guy that we just know as the merchant, who travels throughout the game, and you go to him and sell items to him and buy items from him. That's mostly where you get some of the best weapons in the game. I choose the Red 9 with the stock. That's my go-to weapon. It's fantastic and godlike. He really doesn't serve a purpose in the game. In fact, I even wonder if he's really a character within the game at all, because he basically has no bearing on the plot or story of it. I also praise the voice acting. The voice acting got a lot of praise when it first came out, and it does here. It's very hammy, but I think that's kind of what Resident Evil is going for. I've seen it described a lot as like a B-movie horror flick, and that's the vibe I get from it. Leon has some corny lines in this game, and sometimes it's very painful.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
But it does give you a nice kind of fun, upbeat moment when you're just going through halls of horror. I also really enjoy the level design. It's almost like a maze, even though it's pretty straightforward, but the game is so big in a lot of areas that you're constantly kind of not sure where to go, even though it is a linear path. The boss fights are also very fun, and each are very unique, and I like the different enemy types that they have throughout the game that make you change up your gameplay style a little bit. There's also a couple of puzzles in the game. Those are pretty fun, rather simple, but they are enjoyable. They're nothing like the Silent Hill puzzles that I think are even better. Now, I think that's all for my positives with the game. Now, let me get into some of my negatives. As I said in the beginning of the review, that the first half of this game is superb. It's literally just a perfect game. Especially that first level is very disturbing, scary, and just an all-around great level that doesn't pull any punches and just is brutal. As I said, I had to restart this game several times just to understand the controls. You are pathetic in the beginning of this game, unless you're into this type of gameplay. I wasn't that good at it, but I quickly got better at it. But the first part of this game is very well done, very suspenseful, and interesting. However, the second part of the game kind of falters a bit for me. In terms of the plot gets really goofy when it was really taking itself seriously, but once you got to this area in the game, which is the castle, things get a little goofy, characters do weird things, and just, I don't know, I just wasn't attached to it as I was in the first part of the game, which is disappointing, but I did enjoy myself through these levels, except for near the end of the game. You just kind of end up going through corridors, and you kind of just want to get to the end of the game. And when you find a big open area, you're kind of conditioned to be like, okay, this is going to be an arena where I'm going to fight a bunch of guys, and you end up doing that. So there doesn't really seem to be any surprises after the first half of the game, which was very disappointing, even though I was still enjoying myself. I think there was just a little bit too many just kind of wave enemies in the game. And what do I mean by that? Just areas in the game where there's just a bunch of enemies that come out and you have to fight them. And it just kind of got tiring and exhausting after a while, and I wasn't enjoying myself as much. Now, I want to talk a little bit about something that comes later on in the game. It's after you beat the game, you unlock a side mission storyline where you play as a character named Ada that you follow throughout the entire game. She just kind of comes in at the last moment of different levels throughout the game, and you never really get to know much about her in the game or exactly what she's doing, and this side mission helps to clarify exactly what she's doing. And I thought this was an interesting kind of idea, but it's really not that interesting. In fact, it's kind of dull, and it's very objective based, and it wasn't really that fun either. I kind of just found myself skipping through most of the level, not even fighting enemies, which I guess you can do in the other main game, Resident Evil 4, but here I just didn't care, and I just found it so boring. In fact, she controls very awkwardly compared to Leon, who controls perfectly. There's just something off about it. Also, what's very disappointing, this is an HD remaster, and they don't up-res the cutscenes in this Ada storyline, and there might be a reasoning for it, but it just looks kind of ugly, and there's this ghosting effect that looks really bad, and it kind of takes you out. It's just a very dull experience at that part. There's also some side mission stuff, like little mini games. I haven't delved too much into those. They seem very optional, but they are there, and I mean, I guess I could talk about them, but I haven't played them. Also, a final thing that I don't really care for in the game is these QuickTime events. Now, we've all become conditioned with QuickTime events before, but this is the game that kind of started these QuickTime events, and sometimes it's awkward, and sometimes you just don't have enough time to press the button in time. I've seen worse QuickTime events used, but I don't care for them too much, but they aren't a big nuisance, and there's honestly very few of them. But other than that, that's really all I dislike about the game. I honestly loved the game a lot, and thought it was very fun, but I can understand why people say it's one of the greatest games of all time. It revolutionized a lot. Overall, guys, I think this is a very great game, but not a perfect game. It's not one of my favorite games of all time or anything, but I did really enjoy playing it. It's very tense and just a whole lot of fun, and I'm glad I played it. And with all that said, I give Resident Evil 4 an 8 out of 10. Guys, I want to thank you for watching my first video game review. I plan on doing more of these in the future, hopefully about every month, so that I have enough time to play through the games and see exactly what I like and dislike about them. So, look for my next review coming maybe a month from now, or maybe less. But anyway, guys, with all that said, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next review.